The biting wind of a Kansas winter in 1887 carried more than just snow. It carried secrets, desperation, and the echo of a past Elias McCord thought long buried. His solitary existence on the sprawling ranch, a refuge built from the ashes of his own youthful indiscretions, was a carefully constructed fortress against the world. It was a world he had chosen, a world where the only company was the creak of saddle leather, the lowing of cattle, and the vast, indifferent sky. He had found a measure of peace in this isolation, a quiet rhythm that soothed the rough edges of memory. But peace, he was about to discover, was a fragile commodity, easily shattered by the unexpected return of a ghost. The return wasn't heralded by trumpets or fanfare, but by a small shivering figure huddled against the stark, unforgiving lines of his barn. As Elias guided his wagon back from the necessary trip to Dodge City, the snow blanketing the land in a deceptive layer of white, his eyes caught the anomaly. A shape too small to be a stray animal, too still to be natural. Curiosity, a long-dormant instinct, drew him closer. The figure turned, and in the dimming light, Elias's world tilted on its axis. It was Clara Whitfield, the banker's daughter, from Topeka, a woman who had vanished from polite society 3 years prior, swallowed by rumors and speculation. Her face, etched with a fear that seemed older than her years, was a stark contrast to the carefree laughter he remembered from a barn dance in '84. Her plea, a soft whisper lost in the wind, was an impossible request. "Please, don't. Tell anyone I'm here." The words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken history, with a danger Elias couldn't yet fathom but instinctively felt. His quiet life, his carefully guarded solitude, had just been irrevocably breached. The stark reality of the moment, the raw vulnerability radiating from her, demanded a choice, a split-second decision that would ripple outward, testing the very foundations of his newfound peace. The storm raged outside, a furious tempest mirroring the turmoil brewing within the small ranch house. Elias had offered shelter, a gesture born of a deeply ingrained sense of decency, perhaps even a flicker of the old affection he'd once held for the girl before her life took its sharp, mysterious turn. Now, as Clara sat by the fire, her trembling hands clutching a mug of coffee, the silence between them was thick with unasked questions and unrevealed truths. She offered no explanation, only the desperate assertion that she had nowhere else to turn, a statement that painted a grim picture of her recent past. The memory of her laughter, so full of life and unburdened joy, played like a phantom melody against the harsh reality of her present state. It was a stark reminder of the chasm that had opened between their lives, a chasm she had clearly navigated through treacherous terrain. Then, the sharp, insistent rap of knuckles against the door shattered the fragile quiet. Two men, their faces grim and their intentions palpable, stood silhouetted against the swirling snow, their words a chilling declaration of their purpose. They were tracking a fugitive. The weight of Clara's secret, the danger she represented, now pressed down on Elias, forcing him into a precarious dance of deception, a lie that would bind him to her fate, whether he wished it or not. The storm outside was no longer just a meteorological event. It was a physical manifestation of the trap they were both caught in, a trap that was rapidly tightening its grip. The night deepened, and with it, the storm's fury intensified, sealing them within the confines of the ranch house, a temporary sanctuary that felt increasingly like a cage. Sleep offered Clara no respite, only a descent into nightmares that whispered the name of Randall Kane, a cattle baron whose reputation for ruthlessness preceded him like a dark cloud. The mention of his name, uttered in the hushed tones of terror, sent a shiver of unease through Elias. This was no ordinary flight from trouble. This was an escape from something far more sinister, a danger that had found its way to his isolated doorstep. Just as the first hint of dawn began to paint the eastern sky in muted grays, another sound pierced the oppressive silence. The soft, deliberate creak of horses moving on the perimeter of his land. These were not the familiar sounds of his own livestock, nor the expected arrival of men from town. These were the stealthy movements of predators, circling in the darkness, their presence a chilling confirmation that Clara's pursuers had not been deterred by the storm or by Elias's initial deception. The danger, he realized with a cold dread, was far from over. It was merely beginning to reveal its true terrifying scope. The creak of the barn door, a sound Elias knew intimately, was amplified in the tense silence, each groan of aging wood a prelude to potential violence. He moved with a quiet, practiced efficiency, his rifle held ready, his senses on high alert. The flicker of movement in the shadows was enough to send his heart leaping into his throat, his finger tightening on the trigger. But the figure that emerged was not the harbinger of immediate death he expected. It was Clara, her face pale and drawn, her eyes filled with a desperate resolve. She offered to leave, to surrender herself to whatever fate awaited her, a sacrifice she believed would spare him the danger she had brought to his doorstep. Her willingness to disappear, to become a ghost once more, was a testament to her fear, but it also stirred something within Elias, a protective instinct that defied logic. He refused, a quiet certainty settling in his gut. He would not abandon her. The unspoken pact between them solidified with his refusal, a silent promise in the face of encroaching danger. Meanwhile, the news from Dodge City painted a grim picture. Randall Kane himself had arrived, his presence a heavy weight on the town, his offer of a substantial reward for information about a fugitive woman, a clear sign that his pursuit was relentless and far-reaching. Elias knew then that his isolated ranch, once a sanctuary, was now a target, and Clara's secret was a beacon for the very darkness he had sought to escape. The arrival of 2 hired guns at Elias's ranch was not a surprise, but the casual, almost dismissive way they presented themselves was a carefully crafted facade. Their eyes, however, betrayed their true purpose, lingering on the barn, on the house, searching for any sign of the woman they were hunting. Elias met their veiled threats with a stoic calm, his own gaze steady, his posture unyielding. He played the part of the solitary rancher, undisturbed by their presence, but his mind raced, calculating angles, anticipating their next move. The pretense of a friendly visit couldn't mask the predatory gleam in their eyes, the subtle tension in their stances. It was during this tense standoff, as Elias maintained a watchful distance, that he caught one of the men attempting to circle around the back, a silent, furtive movement that confirmed his suspicions. The charade was over. The confrontation was inevitable. The danger was no longer a distant threat. It was at his very doorstep, armed and dangerous, and Elias knew he had to act, not just for Clara, but for himself, to protect the fragile peace he had so painstakingly built. With a decisive nod, Elias ushered Clara towards the cellar, a dark, hidden space that offered a temporary reprieve from the unfolding confrontation. He understood the gravity of the situation. These men were not here for a casual chat. They were Kane's hounds, unleashed and driven by a ruthless master. He needed to create a diversion, to draw them away from the house, from Clara's hiding place. Leading them towards the frozen creek, Elias gambled on the treacherous terrain, a natural ally in his desperate bid for survival. The scuffle was brutal, a flurry of snow and grunts, Elias's strength and knowledge of the land giving him a crucial edge. He managed to send one of the attackers plunging into the icy water, a shock that momentarily stunned them, forcing the other to retreat, his mission thwarted, at least for the moment. But Elias knew this was only a temporary victory. The storm was a shield, but it was also a prison, and Kane's reach was long. The fight was far from over. It had merely entered a new, more perilous phase, with the fate of Clara and potentially his own life hanging precariously in the balance. Emerging from the cellar, her face streaked with dirt and tears, Clara's voice was a fragile thread of confession, unraveling the mystery that had driven her to Elias's doorstep. The story she told was one of betrayal and murder, a tale of Randall Kane's greed and the brutal silencing of his partner. She was the sole witness, the living proof of his crime, and her fear was a palpable thing, a testament to the danger she had narrowly escaped. Elias listened, his initial suspicion replaced by a grim understanding. Hiding her was no longer a viable option. It was merely delaying the inevitable and putting himself and his ranch at risk. The only path forward The only way to ensure Clara's safety and to bring Kane to justice was to face the danger head-on. They had to reach the U.S. Marshal in Dodge City to place Clara's testimony in the hands of the law before Kane's men could silence her permanently. The journey would be perilous, the odds stacked against them, but the truth she carried was a powerful weapon, and Elias McCord, the solitary rancher, had found a cause worth fighting for, a reason to step out of the shadows and into the storm. Under the cloak of pre-dawn darkness, the crunch of snow beneath their horses' hooves was a hushed prelude to the day's inevitable confrontation. Elias and Clara, their faces grimly set, rode out from the relative safety of the ranch, the vast snow-covered.